was a huge change. Um, Nobody was building in Poly in the 80s when we built those first new homes and then renovated hundreds of more. What we did is what we intended. We wanted to prove the viability of the housing market in Poly. We want to prove that a, a, a developer could, could, could make a profit if they had the right product and the right relationships. And we actually did that. That's the good thing. The challenge is it's almost like it opened a floodgate for more dubious developers some were good and they were being of service. Some were ripping people off. And there was no, it was hard to oversee, to enforce, to protect people from that kind of unfettered market. So that was something that happened. The transient nature of Poly in the 80s and 90s, made it difficult to identify resident leaders. There were a lot of people want to speak for Poly, from elected officials and institutional leaders, but it wasn't as many residential leaders. There were some residential leaders for sure, but not as many as you see in other neighborhoods. So we were trying to cultivate more kind of academy-like. We didn't call them academies. We were just trying to bolster up young leaders from the Poly neighborhood who can step into particular roles and in positions. And of course, the increase in our Hispanic neighbors was starting in the 90s for sure. So by the time I became president and CEO, they were over 50%. And typically the people, the longest standing, there were some long-standing residents who had the means to stay in Poly. Many people were not able to. People on fixed incomes were stuck there. So it wasn't an economic vitality happening in Poly. You had champions like Texas Wesleyan and the Black Chamber. And to some degree, the school district was at the table with some of those conversations.